Something that I'm always keeping an eye on when we go into economic data or something like a Fed decision is going to be, what is big money doing? Are they trying to hide any of their positions? Are they blatantly just taking whatever positions they want? Because our idea and our trades around our technical analysis and around our strategy, which we've back tested literally thousands of times in real time and actual back testing, we believe in that and we stand by that, which is why we take every single position that comes our way. But what if there was a way that we could actually use some insider information that other hedge funds have, that big money uses, that any institutional investor uses? And the way to do that is just to find out what they're doing. And so that's why we use certain flow scanners like black box stocks, which is what you guys are going to see here. I talk a lot about this within our Discord community. I share a lot of our flow on Twitter, which is handpicked. So go follow us over there and make sure you're part of the Discord, because the Discord's got over 12,000 members. And you can also trade with me every single day over there. You can upgrade. It's $50 a month. In the past 2 days, we're up like almost $16,000. So really, really good week. Last week wasn't as hot, but that's the trade-offs of trading. And if you're actually someone who takes portfolio management seriously and trading seriously, then go ahead and check it out. It's more than worth your time and your energy, I promise. So looking at the rest of the day, I did call out some of the unusual flow. Really nothing too crazy. As we were talking about, we're constantly watching for this unusual options activity to give us a little bit better conviction into our normal trades. So if I see, for instance, a bull flag set up on Tesla that's hitting all my requirements, that has good volume, and then I see an institution come in and hit a big order on Tesla to the upside, like for instance these calls that came through at 135, which we're going to talk about today. If I see something like this happen and these come through at 135, there's a solid chance that we're going to probably run for the rest of the day. And so what we can see is we ended up having this push. I'm going to actually make this full screen so it's a little bit easier for you to see. But we end up having this push, we end up pulling back down, and we're using this 15-minute open range breakout as this resistance level. I talk a lot about this for the day traders that are within our community, but using an open range breakout just to dictate, number one, what the trading range is going to be for the day, and number two, what's the trend going to be for the day. Because normally if we break out over the first 15 minutes high of the day, we see a run all the way up, for the rest of the day, which is why I was expecting, and I was tweeting highs of day, probably 200, 202, 204. And that's where we were getting those levels from. So we get this pullback, and then right around 130, unusual flow comes through on Tesla. And the one thing that I like to say is that not all flow is going to actually be unusual. What you will have to do throughout your trading career is learn how to decipher what's actually happening. Most flow is not going to be confirmed, which means we don't actually know if it was a buy or a sell. In this instance, if we just come over here and look at the bottom left side of your screen at the most active calls for the day, we see that Tesla has $22 million in calls. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that $22 million is nothing to Tesla. Like it's so insignificant. A normal day would be like 120, 130. Some of the bigger days you guys will see will cover $400 or $500 million in calls for the day. And so if we actually go over and look at the bullish flow, which this is going to be confirmed flow, and might be a little bit more of an advanced theory, but we're going to talk about this because it's very important whether you're a trader or a long-term investor, because here's the truth. We don't move the market. None of us do. Obviously, even if we all got together, we couldn't move anything. And big money themselves can't move anything. They need other institutions and other players to come in and start moving prices and start moving the market in a specific direction. So if you can actually learn to view what's happening in real time behind closed doors, because number one, most people don't even understand flow. The even smaller few don't even understand how to read it. And then from there, even smaller subsets understand how to use it properly and build it into an edge and use proper risk management with it. So we're going to go over the difference between what's actually a confirmed flow and what's an unconfirmed flow. If we move over to what's called the heat map, it might look like some dorky Excel spreadsheet, but I promise you, if you learn to read this correctly, you're going to make a shit ton of money. So looking at this, we have all of our strike prices here right in the middle of the screen. If you've never read an options chain before, go to our Discord community and take our free courses. We teach you guys everything about options over there, as well as technical analysis. And we have more courses that are coming out. They're going to be on reading flow. But basically to the left, you're going to see C0. C0 means all calls C0 means all calls that are going to be expiring this Friday, so as in November 3rd. C1 is going to be all calls that are going to expire next Friday or 2 weeks out from now. And C2 is going to be any that go further than 2 weeks. So quickly looking at this heat map, we don't know what these levels are. Like, these might expire in a year or two. We don't know. But just taking a glance here, we know that there was a decent amount of action today. The right side is going to be the same thing, but for puts. So P0 is going to equal puts that expire this Friday. P1 is going to be puts that expire next Friday. And P2 is going to be puts that expire 2 weeks or more from now. And obviously the highlighted 200 here is the closest strike to the current price of the underlying asset. Now, if you're somebody who has read a heat map before, or you have an understanding about options, you might be saying, okay, well, on the left side, we have white, which I don't know what that is. I mean, I do, and we'll go over it, but you might not know what white is, but green is probably good. How come there's a lot of green over here in the puts side? Because puts, to most people, they think puts means down or puts is bad. Well, in this instance, these are people who are selling cash secured puts, probably large institutions, banks, or people who make money off of selling premiums, which is what I mainly used to do before I started teaching. From here, you can see that we had a lot of cash secured puts. So a lot of people are banking that Tesla will not close. So this isn't uberly bullish. I hope you understand this. This doesn't mean go buy a ton of calls. But big money is banking on the fact that Tesla will not close below $195 next week, $197.50 next week, and $200 next week. So this doesn't mean that they think it's going to completely rebound back up to 200, but that's a pretty good sign. So for somebody like myself who sees that Tesla was kind of bottoming out today at that level of about 196 to 197, and then I see that big money is selling cash secured puts, I myself as a trader am saying, okay, they're not massively bullish on it. There might be a couple of guys who are going in and getting some calls, which we're going to go over in a moment. And one of the calls was a 45% return. I'm going to share with you how we're able to watch that play out. But I'm more so thinking that it's a pretty safe bet, thinking that we're probably going to bounce at least up to 205 to 210. So what could have changed my mind, and maybe what would have made me actually hold the calls overnight, would have been if we saw a ton of confirmed bullish flow over here on the left. So now we're going to talk about confirmed and unconfirmed, because all of the flow and all of these contracts that you see here in white, whether it's the call side or the put side, the reason they're there is because they are unconfirmed flow for Tesla stock. The reason it's unconfirmed is because we do not know if they came in on the bid, below the bid, or on the ask and above the ask. This means that we cannot actually confirm and be certain that these were actually bullish or bearish trades, because a lot of flow algorithms out there will just be like, oh, look, 14,297 $200 puts expiring this Friday. And you might look at that and be like, holy shit, that is a lot. And it is. But what if it's somebody selling cash secured puts? In this case over here, it was someone selling cash secured puts. And if you didn't know how to read that correctly, you might be watching somebody post on Twitter or in stock twits or something being like, dude, look at all the flow coming through, all this bearish flow on Tesla. But if you actually were able to, pull the lens out, watch the flow, and be like, no, dude, they're selling cash secured puts. Like, that's the complete opposite sentiment as to what's actually going to move the market today. Well, the options market, I should say, because the options market's not going to mess with the underlying, which would be Tesla specifically. So looking here, we did see one unusual flow come through that caught my eye. These expired 11/3, so instantly we know that this is going to be a day trade or max maybe a one-night hold. So I was thinking to myself, well, if we're trading back down here around 197, I'm still looking for 202. Someone's coming in here and hitting 202, and they're hitting these 210 strikes. So the 210 strike is even further away, and this guy's got a lot of money on the line currently, and he ended up making it a 44% gain if they decided to close out. So the biggest thing that we're looking for is going to be confirmed flow, meaning that we know that it was bought on the bid or the ask. And the way that we can quickly look at this is just by seeing what's the bullish versus the bearish flow. And here's a more telling story for you guys. Most active calls, Tesla was 22 million, but if we actually look at the real confirmed flow, Tesla's nowhere to be found. If you look at most active puts, Tesla's at $327 million. $327 million. But we know that because this is unconfirmed Tesla puts, most of this is people selling cash secured puts. So I could go on here, and I'm not going to do this. I was actually contemplating to be like, dude, that's a good title. $327 million worth of Tesla puts came in today. But I was like, that's a little disingenuous because, yeah, I could say that's true, but it's really not, because if we actually went through and netted all of them out, it's nowhere near it. So you might ask yourself, okay, well, if it says Tesla has $327.28 million in puts, what was the actual net? We just go to bearish flow, 44 million. So of the 250 million, the only confirmed was 49 or 44 million, which is crazy. That's literally like a third or less of a third, way less of a third than what you would have potentially thought it was. Now, here's the thing, 44 million confirmed is still not the best, but there is much more people who are selling cash secured puts and seem to be a little bit more bullish on Tesla within the next couple of days than it seems for people to potentially be bearish.